Michael is a quiet, intellectual man who claims to have no religion. He graduated from one of Chicago's prestigious universities and later became a successful structural engineer. That evening he returns to his apartment and starts getting rid of several clipped newspaper articles, notes, and a hard disk. The next day Michael robs a bank and he is arrested by the police. During a hearing with his lawyer friend, Veronica Donovan, Michael waives his right to a trial. Michael nonchalantly accepts the court's ruling and he agrees to go to jail for robbery. His teenage nephew, L.J. Burroughs, he witnessed the trial and looks at him questioningly. Later, Veronica confronts Michael about his unusual behavior. Veronica knows that Michael is not violent, nor does he need money enough to rob a bank. Thinking that he has a deeper motivation for the robbery, she asks Michael to open up to her so that he can help her. However, Michael says nothing and he refuses her help. Thus, the court sends Michael to Fox River State Penitentiary with a 5-year sentence. He states in his medical records that he has alleged type 1 diabetes before being sent to his cell. Michael meets Fernando Sucre, his Puerto Rican-born cellmate. During his first day, Michael observes the other inmates, surprised by the violence occurring inside the prison. The next morning, the inmates spend time in the yard. Sucre walks with Michael and he gives him information about some of the other inmates. Most of the prisoners have formed groups, claiming certain places in the yard. He also tells Michael to watch out for the guards, who behave worse than the prisoners. Soon after, a group of prisoners approaches. While Sucre is distracted, Michael studies the sewer grates around the yard and he approaches a manhole cover, furtively dropping a magazine inside. Sucre and Michael then find a prisoner named Lincoln Burroughs sitting outside the Secure Housing Unit, also known as SHU. Is a more restricted area for punishing violent prisoners, including Lincoln, who has been sentenced to death. Prisoners in the SHU can only go to church and work in Fox River's work program, Prison Industries, also known as PI. When Michael asks Sucre how to get hired in Prison Industries, Sucre says they are run by a notorious mafia boss, John Abruzzi. Sucre also talks about the Lincoln case, in which he allegedly killed Terrence Stedman, the brother of the Vice President of the United States. He wonders why Michael is interested in Lincoln, and Michael reveals that Lincoln is his older brother. Back in his cell, Michael recalls his past conversation with his brother. Lincoln swears to Michael that he did not kill Terrence Stedman, claiming that he was framed. Michael comes to his senses when Sucre asks him for help in writing a letter for a marriage proposal to his girlfriend, Mary Cruz. Sometime later, Mary Cruz visits Sucre and she agrees to marry him as the two get intimate in the prison conjugal room. Sucre then learns that his cousin, Hector, he offered Mary Cruz a ride to the prison, infuriating him. However, they reconcile before parting ways. Meanwhile, Michael goes to his first medical visit to the infirmary. While Dr. Sarah Tancredi gives him the insulin injection, Michael tries to flirt with her, and she apparently is the governor's daughter. Sarah leaves him briefly, allowing Michael to secretly throw an origami swan into a manhole inside the infirmary. After a sermon delivered by Bishop McMorrow, Michael meets his brother Lincoln at church. Lincoln is shaken by seeing Michael imprisoned, but before the officers take him away, Michael tells him that he will break him out of prison. Michael is then called to the office of Henry Pope, the director of Fox River. Knowing that Michael is a structural engineer, he asks for Michael's help to build a model of the Taj Mahal made of sticks as a wedding anniversary gift for his wife Judy. At the same time, LJ is caught by plainclothes policemen doing something wrong. His mother, Lisa Ricks, she does not understand why LJ is suddenly misbehaving because he has always been a model student. She decides to take the boy to his father, Lincoln, and they visit him in prison. The boy expresses his resentment toward Lincoln, and he ignores his fatherly advice. Meanwhile, Veronica is with her current boyfriend, Sebastian Balfour, and he talks about their wedding plans. Sebastian wants them to get married as soon as possible, but Veronica wants to take things slowly. He worries that she is having second thoughts about marriage, which Veronica denies. Veronica is still worried that Michael did not put up a fight during the hearing. Veronica goes to visit Michael in jail, where he confirms that entering jail was part of his plan to save Lincoln, who is apparently Veronica's ex-boyfriend. Michael encourages Veronica to reinvestigate Lincoln's case if she really wants to help him. Later, Secret Service agents Daniel Hale and Paul Kellerman meet in their office. Hale tells Kellerman that Lincoln's death sentence has been set, but that Bishop McMorrow has opposed it. They fear that Lincoln's execution may be delayed because of the bishop's close ties to the governor. They go to Bishop McMorrow's residence to persuade him not to intervene. However, the bishop is firm in his decision to support Lincoln and the other prisoners facing the death sentence. In the middle of the night, a mysterious figure breaks into Bishop McMorrow's bedroom and kills him. The next day, Veronica learns of the bishop's death. Veronica becomes convinced that someone wants Lincoln dead and begins her investigation. In the prison yard, Michael approaches John Abruzzi to enter Prison Industries, but Abruzzi pushes him away. Before leaving, Michael hands Abruzzi an origami of a swan, claiming to have something valuable that might interest him. To his surprise, Abruzzi receives a phone call from one of his men concerning Otto Fibonacci, an informant whose testimony got him imprisoned. Abruzzi learns that Fibonacci was found by an anonymous sender who sent an envelope with a swan origami inside. Realizing that it is Michael, Abruzzi hangs up the phone call and he goes directly to him. At the same time, Michael approaches another inmate named Charles Westmoreland and his cat Marilyn. Michael asks Charles if he is D.B. Cooper, but the old man denies it. Abruzzi asks Michael to tell him where Fibonacci is. Abruzzi and his gang attack Michael until the officers stop them. At that moment, Michael is summoned to the warden's office, and Pope reprimands him for his misconduct. As a result, Michael agrees to help Pope with the Taj Mahal model to avoid the punishment of 90 days in solitary confinement. In return, Pope owes Michael a favor. During his second appointment in the infirmary, Michael continues to flirt with Sarah. Despite this, Sarah focuses on her work, pointing out that his body reacts to insulin as if he were not diabetic. Michael studies the electrical wiring in the infirmary before leaving, while Sarah informs him that at his next appointment, she will run tests to confirm diabetes. To make Sarah believe that he has diabetes, Michael goes to Benjamin Franklin, commonly called C-Note. He pays him so that he can obtain PUGNAC, a drug that can lower insulin levels. Abruzzi eventually agrees to hire Michael in Prison Industries so he can work alongside Lincoln. After the shift, the two talk about their escape plan. To Lincoln's surprise, Michael reveals the prison blueprints tattooed on his body, hidden under various pictures and drawings. Back in the cell, Michael examines one of his tattoos, which reads Alan Schweitzer 111211147. He notes the letters on a sheet of paper along with the combination of numbers. Just then, officers conduct a surprise search. Sucre panics, and he quickly orders Michael to drop the drugs and the knife. The two fail to do so, however, because Captain Bradley Bellick, head of the correctional officers, he surprises Michael with the weapon in his hand. Soon after, Pope stops in front of their cell and he inspects the knife. Pope discovers that the weapon belongs to Sucre, knowing that Michael is not good at lying. As punishment, Sucre is sent to solitary confinement. Pope orders Bellick to leave, preventing him from further harassing Michael. Bellick becomes suspicious of Michael and he warns him to be careful. Michael tells Lincoln that the infirmary has the weakest security in the prison. The goal is to convince Sarah that he is diabetic so that he can continually visit the infirmary and carry out his plan. In addition, Michael is in contact with C-Note to acquire the PUGNAC. Lincoln has doubts about Michael's plan and he warns him to be careful of C-Note and the other black inmates. Michael then learns that there is racial tension between the black and white inmates, but he chooses to ignore it. Later in the yard, Michael makes his way to the bleachers and he secretly begins to loosen a screw. It turns out that the number combination in his tattoo represents the long screw, which he needs for his escape plan. To his disappointment, Theodore Teabag Bagwell, the self-proclaimed owner of the bleachers, arrives with his partner, May Tagg, and the rest of their gang. Teabag, who is also a known leader of the white supremacist group inside Fox River, he allows Michael to sit on their bleachers, thinking the boy is intimidated by the other black prisoners. He offers to protect Michael from them in the coming race war, but Michael refuses. So Teabag sends Michael away, and he fails to get the screw. He later returns to the bleachers to get the vine, but Teabag notices and he forcefully takes it from him. Michael is increasingly anxious to get the vine back from Teabag. He asks Abruzzi for help in confronting Teabag, but Abruzzi refuses. Later that day, Philly Falzone, Abruzzi's fellow mobster, visits him. The man begins to pressure Abruzzi, blackmailing him to kill his sons if he cannot get more information about Fibonacci. Meanwhile, the inmates experience the hardships of solitary confinement. Lincoln leans his head against the wall and he recalls an intimate moment from his past relationship with Veronica, causing him to break down from loneliness. Sucre, on the other hand, is forbidden to go out and talk on the phone for days. He then fails to call and greet his fiancée, Mary Cruz, even on the woman's birthday. As the days pass, racial tension among the inmates continues to grow, and some of them prepare to riot. Desperate, Michael joins Teabag during the riot, claiming he wants protection. However, C-Note sees Michael talking to Teabag. Disappointed, C-Note retaliates against Michael, telling him that he will no longer receive Pugnac. Outside the prison, Veronica gathers more information about Lincoln's case. She meets Tom Giles, a lawyer who has represented Lincoln in the past. The lawyer tells her that Lincoln is undeniably guilty because of the overwhelming amount of evidence. Tom hands Veronica a recording of Lincoln, in which he points a gun at someone inside a vehicle. The next day, Veronica visits Lincoln in prison. He looks at Veronica longingly. On the other hand, Veronica looks angry, convinced that Lincoln is guilty of murder because of the tape she saw. Lincoln explains that he went to that place to pay off his debt to one Crab Simmons. He says he only pointed the gun but never pulled the trigger because the vice president's brother was already dead when Lincoln saw him. He is convinced that he was set up, but Veronica struggles to believe him. The next morning, Veronica continues her investigation and she goes to Simmons' house. Crab's mother sends her away, telling her that Crab can no longer help anyone because he is dead. She manages to talk to Crab's ex-girlfriend, Letitia Barris, who invites her to a public meeting. Letitia mentions to Veronica a mysterious group that killed Crab and now wants to kill Lincoln as well. Letitia warns her, saying that this group wants to hide the truth behind the murder. Soon after, Letitia runs away, claiming that the group has already spotted them. From a distance, Kellerman and Hale observe Veronica. Later, Kellerman calls a mystery woman to report on Veronica's investigation. The mystery woman orders Kellerman to take care of her because she has become a threat to them. At the same time, during the inspection, a riot breaks out inside the prison. Teabag leads the group of white inmates who attack the black prisoners. Michael finds Teabag's companion in possession of the vine and he rushes to steal it from him. Maytag pursues Michael when a black inmate stabs him to death. The inmate falls helplessly on Michael's arms, leading Teabag to believe that it was Michael who killed him. The riot ends as officers release tear gas. Following this, Warden Pope punishes all the prisoners and he issues a 48-hour lockdown order. Michael returns to his cell, shaken by the turn of events. But he has finally recovered the screw and proceeds with his plan. It turns out that his Alan Schweitzer tattoo represents the elements he needs to get out of his cell. Schweitzer is the name of the bathroom in his Fox River cell. Alan is the screw that holds the toilet on the wall. The number combination is the number of the screw to loosen the toilet. As Michael walks away from Teabag and his gang, C-Note gives Michael the Pugnac just before he is called to the infirmary. During the blood test, Michael fears that the Pugnac will not respond quickly, since he has just taken the pills. However, the Pugnac takes effect and the result declares that he is diabetic, making Michael smile with relief. As soon as he leaves the infirmary, Michael is taken by Abruzzi's men to a warehouse. They force Michael to reveal Fibonacci's whereabouts, but he says he will give the information only if Abruzzi joins him in his escape plan. Irritated, Abruzzi cuts off two of Michael's toes using garden shears. At that moment, Bellick and some officers arrive at the warehouse, interrupting them. Abruzzi hides Michael's toes while the officers take him to the infirmary. Michael cries in pain as Sarah inspects his foot. Sarah asks him what happened, but Michael refuses to tell her the truth. She bandages him up and she talks to Bellick outside the infirmary for an explanation. Bellick replies that Michael cut his toes off because of a gardening accident, and he leaves the infirmary before she can ask any more questions. Lincoln, on the other hand, he rages after learning of the attack on his brother. Knowing that Abruzzi did it, Lincoln intends to kill him, but Michael calms him down. Michael explains that Abruzzi is the owner of a company that has ties to small airlines near Fox River. He points out that they need Abruzzi to join their plan, as he can provide a plane for their escape. In addition, Michael says they will also need Sucre. Since they are cellmates, it is important for Sucre to be with them so that Michael can continue digging in the bathroom of their cell. Meanwhile, Sucre thinks about his girlfriend Maricruz and calls her as soon as he is released from solitary confinement, but she does not answer. Sucre worries that Maricruz is angry that he did not call her on her birthday, fearing that she might be with Hector. Just then, Michael begins the next part of his plan, which involves a test for his cellmate, Sucre. In prison industries, Michael hides a cell phone in one of the power boxes and he shows it to Sucre. Sucre asks if he can use it, but Michael forbids it. Lincoln catches Sucre talking about the cell phone to the other inmates. He then calls Bellick's attention and, in exchange for the information, Lincoln gets more time out of the cell. Sucre, on the other hand, is confronted by Bellick about the cell phone. Bellick warns Sucre that he will be forbidden to have conjugal visits with Maricruz if he does not give him information. Despite this, Sucre does not reveal the cell phone and he loses the right to conjugal visits. Later Michael realizes that Sucre has kept the secret, and now he can trust Sucre. Michael reveals to him that the cell phone was actually a decoy made of soap. Michael tells Sucre that he can take him to Maricruz if he joins them. When he discovers Michael's plan to escape, Sucre chooses to stay away from him and moves to another cell. As a result, Bellick assigns Haywire, an inmate suffering from a mental illness, as Michael's new cellmate. Later, in the prison yard, Michael informs Lincoln about Haywire and how he is evidently delaying their progress. He decides to continue working on the cell bathroom at night while Haywire sleeps. However, he tells Michael that he has a medical condition for which he does not sleep. Later, in solitary confinement, Warden Pope visits Lincoln. He is scheduled to be sentenced to death in less than 4 weeks, and Pope encourages him to invite his family members during the execution. Lincoln does not want to invite anyone to witness his death and insists on being alone. Warden Pope tells him that many inmates have regretted not seeing their loved ones in their final moments. With the help of a priest, Lincoln realizes that he wants to be with the people who are important to him. Later, he meets his son, who is forced to visit him by order of the probation officer. Lincoln tells him how much he loves him and that he wants his son and Michael to witness his execution. LJ cries and agrees to be there for him. Meanwhile, Veronica meets Letitia and she convinces her to give a written statement in her office. According to Letitia, Lincoln had a large debt to Crabbe, which was suddenly paid by Secret Service agents. Letitia pauses and she leaves the office while Veronica finishes the written statement. Just then, Agent Kellerman enters her office. Kellerman pulls off the surveillance tape on Lincoln's case, pretending to offer his help to Veronica. After talking to Kellerman, Veronica searches for Letitia, but the woman is nowhere to be found. Sebastian and Veronica meet later, and he is convinced that she still has doubts about the marriage. Hurt, Sebastian decides to call off the wedding and he leaves her. At the same time, it is discovered that Kellerman and Hale have kidnapped Letitia. They go to the woods and shoot her, killing her. Philly has returned to Fox River to meet Abruzzi. Abruzzi says he is still working on finding the Fibonacci position, showing him the toes he cut off Michael. Having made no progress, Philly continues to threaten Abruzzi's children, saying that his children will stay with Philly for a few weeks. This forces Abruzzi to cooperate with Michael in his escape plan. In a room, Abruzzi and his men attack Teabag in front of Michael to make amends and regain his favor. Abruzzi and Michael talk, reaching an agreement in which he will trade a plane in exchange for Fibonacci's location. In solitary confinement, Lincoln wakes from a nightmare about his impending execution. He dreams of Bellick and his men forcefully dragging him toward the electric chair. Will they be able to escape before execution? Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.